Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. President Mutharika of Malawi is on a whistle-stop tour earlier yesterday. These are photographs from his campaign trail. You always see these enormous crowds, but they're not too difficult to assemble if you've got a wallet. Bongo back in Gabon after 5-month medical leave to treat stroke. I was watching some of the footage. It's very light and you don't see much, but he doesn't look to be that well. Burundi has released 3 schoolgirls whose detention over accusations of scribbling on President Pierre Nkurunziza's picture in textbooks had led to an international outcry. Bearer, listen to this, Mail and Guardian. It is a few minutes past 9 p.m. on Saturday. Beira is a ghost town, a shadow of its former self. The streets are deserted and darkened. Some are blocked by fallen trees. There are no police in sight. On Avenida Eduardo Mondlane, which leads onto the elegant colonial-era palace of the provincial governor, one building is brightly lit with dozens of luxury cars parked outside. The hum of generators disturbs the still night. This is Solange, one of the few restaurants that remained open following the arrival of Cyclone Lidai on March 14, and it is doing a roaring trade in steak, tiger prawns, and imported Portuguese wine. In the wake of the disaster, some dishes now go for 6,000 meticals. The restaurant's not feeding any of the hundreds of thousands of people affected by the cyclone. Instead, its patrons are the ministers and senior government officials who flocked into Beira to assess the damage. Early on that same day, Avenida de Mozambique, which runs through the poorer, high-density suburb of Munhava, men and women are fishing handfuls of rice from the floodwaters. The water's up to their knees. The rice comes from a nearby rice warehouse. For these fishermen of rotting rice, this meal may be the first in 4 days. It may be their salvation, keeping them alive until help arrives, if help arrives. One of them is Dixon Mafiga. I know that rice can create disease, but I have to choose between starvation or dying of disease after eating. John Felisberto lost his wife and son buried by a wall of their house when it collapsed. They were buried without dignity, their bodies carted in a wheelchair, usually used to carry garbage. Him and his daughter have been eating only sugarcane since the cyclone struck. He has come because he feels like he has to do something. We have nothing, and I cannot stay at home watching a girl who lost her mother and sister starving. Later that night in Solange, a cabinet minister asks the waiter, "Can I see the wine list?" I first visited Maputo in June 2012, and I wrote an article called Maputo Boomtown. We were staying at the Serena Polano. And I said this at the beginning, I can confirm that Maputo is the land of wonderful and flavoursome tiger prawns. Indeed it is. This is a photograph of Maputo from the sea. And in October 2016, I wrote Mozambique from boom to bust, a cautionary tale. Mozambique popped onto the global radar in 2011 when huge gas reserves were discovered offshore. We visited in 2012, and I recall the wife being seriously astonished when we jumped in a taxi and the driver turned out to be Portuguese. I said Mozambique could be the next Qatar, as we stuffed ourselves with wonderfully favoursome tiger prawns. The Mozambique floods have covered more ground than New York, Chicago, DC and Boston combined. Post-flood satellite images of Mozambique show that the cyclone Lidai submerged around 835 square miles of homes and fields. Beira will go down in history as having been the first city to be completely devastated by climate change, said Graca Machel. Goes back to my point about the level of interference we've created in the cosmic tuning phenomenon. And of course the John Donne poem, for whom the bell tolls, no man is an island entire of itself. Each is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. Each man's death diminishes me, for I am involved in mankind. Therefore send not to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Tshisekedi's cortege just brought the Boulevard du 30th Juin to a halt as he returned from Kigali, 10 police motorbikes and 18 4x4s. Anecdotal, obviously, but I don't remember Kabila's ever being as big, WDB Klaus. But the thing is, Tshisekedi is more popular than Kabila in Kinshasa. Naspers CEO bets on a Dutch listing to fix the 10-cent discount. $133 billion stake in Tencent, for which they paid less than $30 million. They're listing it in Amsterdam, and it's a very interesting business. Started actually as an old-fashioned Afrikaner media company. Did you know DFI investments have grown 7-fold in Africa since 2000, while other financial flows average less than 1% growth? I didn't know that. That came from the Africa CEO Forum. Total wants to drill for oil in the world's fastest ocean current. The prospect is surrounded by the Aguilas Current, a fast-moving flow of warm water where the Atlantic and Indian Oceans converge, which travels the country's east coast and can cause waves the height of a multi-story building. South African all shares up 5.5% year to date. Dollar Rand, I think the Rand's sitting on the precipice at 14.46. President Al-Sisi, I've been praiseworthy of him when it comes to the economy. I think he made bold moves and devalued the currency early, took the pain, reaping the dividend now. Bloomberg has an article, the world's deepest rate cuts beckon in Egypt. The Egyptian pound is the Middle East's best performing currency this year, trading near its strongest level in 2 years. It has gained about 3.6% against the dollar. Nigeria's central bank cut its main interest rate by 50 basis points to 13.5%. No one expected that move. I still think they've got to do something about the currency, and they can't keep tinkering with the interest rate. It's not really relevant in my view. Nigerian all shares down 1.25% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange down 3.09% this year.